Hi, my name is Jacob Barr. I'm the owner of Raps.com. I'm here with my colleague Isaac Ruiz, and we're beginning this new venture by creating our very first introduction podcast for the Pro-Life Team podcast.
Yeah.
So Isaac, we're in this introduction podcast where our goal is to describe what we're trying to achieve with this new series, what kind of content we want to create and deliver, and along with also sharing the purpose or the goals that this content will have, such as trying to be a blessing to pregnancy center leadership so that we can provide encouragement and resources that don't come with the normal conference price tag, price tags that would include hotel and travel and all of the time required to go to a 3-day event. We're trying to essentially highlight some small stories and then stretch them out in order to make them even more enjoyable and more helpful. And there's so many good stories that we've heard over the years that often get presented at these national conferences by really caring, intelligent, and helpful people. And we're just going to try and bring out a few of those stories through this video podcast series in a way that is accessible and convenient and helpful and hopefully a blessing to leadership teams who are on the front lines, engaging, the opposing Planned Parenthood force in different spaces in this pro-life world.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the things that we face with a lot at iRapture.com is we get to experience talking to a lot of executive directors, a lot of staff members, and a lot of volunteers. And the one thing that we understand fundamentally is that the pro-life movement is very much underfunded and under-resourced. So we try our very best to try to think outside of the box, do a lot of different testing, if you would, on different types of marketing strategies and a lot of different things. So having a platform and a place where we can share all these different ideas, whether they're great ideas or maybe they're perhaps some really poor ideas, we want to give you guys the space where you can listen in, lean into these different strategies and ideas and hear how God's working in our communities. And perhaps one of these ideas will make a huge impact in your pregnancy center or in your pro-life movement. So hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah, and this morning we shot our very first episode, and then here we are trying to introduce this podcast series. In the very first episode, we shot with Lori out of Texas, and we asked her some questions about this story of prayer, of how God took her request and fulfilled her heart's desire, her needs at her brand new 6-month-old center there in Texas. And our goal is to share these really beautiful stories so that you can be encouraged to find a similar story in your world, in your life with God and Jesus interacting with your work. And also just to provide you with comfort, essentially to be a blessing to the people who bless others. And so as you're working to bless and help women in a really difficult situation, our goal here is to try and be a blessing to you by sharing stories that reflect how God's goodness helped in this area in order for you to then hopefully connect how it can then help in your area. And not to say that you haven't seen God's work in your area already. We're just trying to encourage and support you in that work, because with good work comes attacks from the deceiver, attacks from the distractor, the destroyer of life. And we just want to provide support for this, for the work that you're doing and that you're involved in. and not to say that we're trying to belittle what you're doing or saying we have solutions and ideas that you haven't come across before, but rather we just want to encourage you and support you in what you're already doing, because I believe executive directors of a center are called by God to work in that area. Like it's a unique position to have, and it's instrumental in God's work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, working with executive directors day in and day out, I've been able to kind of feel the hearts of a lot of these wonderful, wonderful people. And I got to say, first off, hats off to you, executive directors out there, because you guys wear a million different hats and you guys are super busy running multiple facets of a business. But most importantly, the one thing that I know that every executive director has is they share the same passion for the unborn. And also, let's not forget, but the passion for the mothers, where a lot of the world has given up on these mothers. Executive directors just work their tails off to make sure that these mothers have a place that's safe, that's comfortable, that not only embraces the mom, but embraces that newborn baby that's inside of you. So again, guys, we just hope that we can be a blessing to you guys in any which way, whether it's through an encouraging word, through a message, through ideas, through strategies. We just want to be here for you guys and give you and enable you guys to do the best that you can possibly do at your pregnancy center.
Yeah, and so we're excited. We're actually, my wife was praying that we would have a lot of joy during this conference. During this podcast video creation effort, and so we truly are excited to be able to be in a position where God has led us to this point of creating this content that will be an encouragement to you. And so you can expect several videos to be coming out after this one, and it's free, it's open source. Feel free to share this video content with other people, other pro-life team leaders, so that they can be encouraged as well. And so there's no price tag, there's no expectation of donation. This is essentially a gift that we want to give, and we feel called to encourage and support the pro-life, Jesus-loving team that we are working with on a regular basis. And so we're working to do that. We're essentially taking our heart's desire and strategically working to accomplish it. And so we hope that this is helpful to you and that this is something that you would enjoy sharing with other people who might find it helpful.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to get involved with us and want to help out, maybe you have a story that you feel that God wants us to share, please feel free to reach out to us, whether it's via email, whether it's through a phone call. It doesn't matter how. Just get your story out to us, and we'll definitely take a listen. And we would love to, again, share God's miraculous stories with as many people as we can, because we know that sometimes all it takes is just an encouraging word or an encouraging story to really encourage God's people to do great things. And that's what we hope to accomplish at the end of the day.
So part of how this idea came about was when Lori DeVillis was praying with us. She prayed for God to increase the territory, increase her territory. But then she defined sort of like how that might how that might come about. And essentially the way to increase the territory is for more people to be invited into this work, into this ongoing battle, into this spiritual battle, into the space of helping women who are facing an unplanned pregnancy, who might be, thinking about abortion or may be vulnerable to choosing abortion. And for this, this pro-life team who is working to reach these women and help deliver, helping them deliver their babies and have new birthdays involved. And the work doesn't stop there. I think that, but this is really important because, as Isaac and I were talking over lunch just before this podcast, we were talking about how someone can't have an evangelistic opportunity to meet Jesus unless they are there to see it. And so essentially the goal of trying to help babies, breathe and have life is so important because it lines people up for then meeting Jesus down the road. But that second part is just as important as this pro-life effort. That evangelistic part is critical, because if someone has 80 years of breath, what does that mean unless they see Jesus? It's so important for them to find Jesus down that road. But then again, the evangelistic part doesn't necessarily get the opportunity for someone to meet Jesus unless they, if that baby doesn't get the chance to breathe outside of the womb, then that gets cut very short, and there is no, so I think it's a perfect marriage of two different parts that need to be worked on, and we're called to support this pro-life team effort, this pro-life leadership team, by trying to provide you with encouragement. But I essentially just want to provide equal importance to the pastors, the evangelists, the priests, the people who love Jesus, so that they, that part is just as important, and essentially is the next domino in this series of pieces that need to be done for people to find Jesus. And there's many dominoes in this long series of experiences, but just in generally speaking, having life and then meeting Jesus are just such beautiful things. And we'd love to dive in deeper on all these topics of how that plays out.
Absolutely. It's funny because I think about, whenever I think about the pro-life, the word itself, pro-life, we assign it so much to just babies, but realistically we can assign it to the Christian life and the life cycle of a Christian. But I mean, if you look back at the Word of God, it says that he came to give us life and life everlasting. So when you say pro-life, it should definitely, there should be an implication of the babies, right? Because that's the battle that we're fighting right this second. But we can't split that from just the everyday life. If Jesus came to give us life, then pro-life means a lot more, and that word holds a lot more weight to all of us. We should really be considering the evangelistic approach to bring in all people to God. That should be a focus. But like Jake said, it's a two-part thing that has to happen in tandem. It has to happen both at the same time. Again, we just hope that we can encourage you guys and help you guys just kind of reach new heights. Yeah,
this weekend I was at a retreat, spending time journaling, trying to talk to God and trying to hear his voice. And one of the other people on this retreat was sharing his story of what he was talking to God about and what he was hearing. And he felt like he didn't really hear much, but he shared with the group what he wrote down. And all of us could see God's fingerprints in what he was writing about, even though he was sort of having a hard time seeing it. And one of the things that he pointed out was that he felt like God was inviting him into having a life abundant. And I think, often we think about pro-life as being about the birthday, but really, we're really wanting to call people into not just having life, but having life abundant.
That's
where
right.
the focus is on Jesus, there's blessing, there's joy, there's peace, there's long suffering, there's an opportunity to minister to others in order to provide accomplishment. And, being a servant allows you to have an impact on the person you're serving. And all of these things add up to an abundant life. And an abundant life is such a beautiful way of seeing life, because life is good. Well, life can be good, but abundant life is beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. That's how we pay him the big bucks. No, honestly though, it's funny because Jake and I have been talking back and forth for the last I don't know, year almost, about starting this podcast and how we wanted to impact the pro-life movement and the whole pro-life world. And we've received so much confirmation in the past year, and individual confirmation, not just both of us in the same room praying, but individually, God has been speaking into our lives about how we need to approach approach the way that we reach out to pregnancy centers, and not even just pregnancy centers, just people as a whole. As much as I want this to be a resource for pregnancy centers and the pro-life movement, realistically, I would like this to be much bigger than that, because I feel like speaking about the themes of being pro-life and like Jake said, living that abundant life, I want to make sure that we can be a resource for everyone, because every pregnancy center that I've ever talked to, they really hope to be that kind of like that beacon of hope to their community, whether they're dealing with a pregnant mother or just evangelizing the word of God to anyone who walks by their facility. So just like them, we want to be a beacon of hope, and we want to be a pro-life to the fullest extent, where it's not just babies, and definitely, yes, babies, but also just offer that abundant life that Jesus Christ offers each and every one of us, whether we deserve it or not. I think the saying that you say is best: everyone deserves a birthday. But I think that it goes way further than just babies. Everyone deserves a Jesus birthday as well.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And one thing that Isaac often will bring up, and when we're eating lunch and just chit-chatting about
a lot of eating, huh?
Food is good.
Yep.
So one thing we often talk about is how important and critical the role of the church is in this work. And just today during lunch, we were talking about how a pregnancy clinic, it has a lot of the similar characteristics of a church. They're introducing people to Jesus, whether through actions or through words or through both. The direction is there, and then also they're helping single moms, like, as a regular staple of what's being done. And in the Bible, it's very clear that the church is to help single moms, orphans, people who are alone. And the single moms is something that I just think, what better vehicle is there than a pregnancy clinic who is helping single moms during one of the most challenging times as being a brand new single mom.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we talk a lot about, enabling the church or empowering the church to get more involved, because, again, with the idea that pregnancy centers, and we discussed this a little bit earlier as well, pregnancy centers are doing a lot of evangelistic work. It's the perfect opportunity to team up with a church. A pregnancy center and a church teaming up just makes so much sense. Because, again, a pregnancy center is dealing a lot with the physical, the actual literal life of somebody, right? Like a baby. Whereas the church, although, yes, there's a lot of situations where churches do deal with the literal life of a person, but mainly churches are dealing with the spiritual lives of people. But we evangelize in the same exact way. We preach Jesus. We try to change hearts and not minds, which is something that we had spoken about earlier. Changing the heart of a young woman, by being kind to them, by providing services that are free, where, in this day and age, free things, they're kind of uncommon. Everyone wants $1. And the fact that these pregnancy centers are doing everything in their power, raising money. I mean, the fundraising efforts that we help, iRapture.com helps a lot with fundraisers, websites for fundraising. I mean, you name it. We try to do everything in our powers to help these pregnancy centers make some money. But they do all of that. All the pregnancy centers do all of this and put so much money into raising funds so that they can give something for free to their clients, to give something out of love and out of their goodness of their hearts, give something free to young women who are struggling with probably one of the most difficult decisions that they'll ever have to make in their lives. And we just feel that the partnership between churches and pregnancy centers is one of those vital things that has to happen. I think the church and pregnancy centers, they should be, the words should be synonymous. They should be able to fit within the same frame of mind.
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to encourage you as you're listening to this podcast, this video podcast, is I'd like to encourage you to contact us or put into the comment, if there's a comment option on what you're watching. Let us know how your pregnancy clinic has engaged the church. And we would enjoy hearing your ideas, because we want to promote those good ideas of how churches and pregnancy clinics have come together to work together to accomplish these shared goals. One pregnancy clinic here in Tucson, Answers for Life, they had this beautiful idea. I think it was like 5 years ago, where a young couple who just decided they chose life for their child, and they wanted to get married, but they didn't have the $50 for the justice of the peace. And so they contacted a church, and the church donated the pastor's time to be the preacher, or the person who would provide the wedding, along with the wedding venue. They had all the people donated the items for that wedding, and essentially a church came alongside this couple and helped them have a wedding, and it was all for free. And then that couple ended up actually joining that church. Not that they had to, but after seeing so much love and care poured out, it made a lot of sense that they would want to. And since then, I think they've done about 5 or 6, maybe even 7 of these weddings, partnering with a church. And I think that's a really interesting way, where a church has like what someone needs to get married, and a pregnancy clinic obviously has people who need to get married. And so it was a really interesting way to come together. And so, please feel free to take that idea if you feel led to, but please share your ideas. We would love to hear what ideas you have come up with, so that we can amplify the voice of those ideas and share that with other clinics. So that's one of the things that we really enjoy doing, is finding someone who has a really good idea and then trying to then share that with other people who might benefit from that idea. Like, that's a staple
Absolutely.
of what we do.
Absolutely.
is recycling good ideas.
It's funny because that story that resonated so much with me, because I come from a small church. My dad's a pastor. He's been pastoring that church for over 30 years now. And we've helped at that capacity with our members. So like, if there's a member that wants to get married, we'll provide the venue for free. We'll do the ceremony for free. The only thing that the couple has to do, and usually that's not even the case, because we'll try to donate money towards the cause, but is basically pay for the food. But it's such an awesome idea. And that's what I mean when I say the partnership between church and pregnancy center has to be tight like that, because that's such an awesome idea. The resources are all there, but as a father, my wife and I, we talk a lot about positive reinforcement with our kids. Like, when they do something good, make a good decision, we give them a treat, a candy, or something like that. And what better way to show positive reinforcement in regards to family values and the family value that that the churches share with pregnancy centers, than by basically saying, if you guys get married, we'll help you. We'll have your back. As a church, we'll have your back. As a pregnancy center, we got your back. What an awesome way to show that positive reinforcement, and more importantly, to really show the love of Jesus in a very practical way. It just makes sense. But that's what Jake's saying. Like, there's so many great ideas that, people like Jake and I, that we just don't come up with them. So we need your help.